Lots of people think of Everglades National Park and they think of the river of grass, that big sheet of water that comes down from Lake Okeechobee and floods the Everglades and Big Cypress National Parks. Well, here we are in Everglades National Park, and there's really not a lot of water around that we can visibly see. We're here with Melissa Abdo from the National Parks Conservation Association, exploring places away from the water of Everglades National Park. Specifically, we're in a hardwood hammock.
A hardwood hammock or a rockland hammock, that's right.
Yeah, now explain, what is that exactly?
So this rockland hammock is one of the few upland habitats in South Florida, and it's adjacent to a pine rockland habitat that we just came from. And what makes this rockland hammock really so unique across the whole greater Everglades ecosystem is that it is comprised of temperate as well as tropical species. So here in South Florida, because of our subtropical climate, we have a mixture of temperate species, so think oak trees, grand old oak trees that'll have their arms and branches in the canopy here, and then we have tropical or more tropical in nature trees like the gumbo limbo and the cocoloba trees that we're standing beneath. And what also makes this habitat very unique is that the diversity of species that we're standing within, the diversity of plant species, most of that diversity is within the trees, within this habitat type. So it's different than the other upland habitat that I was just sharing with you about, that is the pine rocklands, where most of the biodiversity or the plant diversity is in the herbaceous layer, so essentially down low, and here all that diversity is over our heads in this really, really incredible tree canopy.
So it's almost like the trees here are ladders of sort to help the vegetation come up.
Yeah, well, and you know, you bring an interesting point. They definitely provide structure for some of the really unique tropical species that are in this habitat, and those are the bromeliads and the orchids. And so those are definitely more tropical in their provenance than some of the other species here. And so South Florida, I think we have something like 13 different species of native bromeliad just in one genus.
Really?
So just in the Tillandsia genus, we have these, you know, a lot of diversity in these bromeliads that make their homes on that tree ladder or that tree trunk.
Yeah. So is there a number of epiphytes in the rockland hammock?
And those are epiphytes, exactly. Yeah. So the bromeliads and orchids, those are epiphytes that make their home in the rockland hammock, and they will be living on trees as their support. And it's usually a symbiotic relationship, or at least not a harmful relationship, in that it's not a parasitic relationship. So those epiphytes are just getting their structure from the trees, but they are not taking nutrients or...
Right. But they are adding a little decorative touch. I mean, we were on the Buttonwood Canal earlier, and we saw some of the bromeliads that were, I don't know if they were actually blooming or starting to bloom or the end of the bloom, but you know, the red, beautiful deep reds and whatnot. Now, the federal government and the state government have been working hard to restore the Everglades, quote unquote, and spending lots amount of money to raise the to Miami Trail, Route 41, and work out some deals with agricultural interests, I guess. And while that will help the river of grass, it will also help this upland area as well?
That's right, it will. So the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, or CERP, or Everglades Restoration as it's known, that was authorized by Congress in the state of Florida back in 2000. It was authorized, and it basically served as a blueprint on how we can restore all of the river of grass, not only the wetland ecosystems, but by restoring the water flow in terms of getting the quantity, the quality, the timing, and the distribution of that water right. It will also benefit habitats like this. So what we're not seeing around us, but what is very much here, are these really neat microhabitats within this forest that are called solution holes. And those are essentially holes in the rock geology. And historically, there would have been some water in those holes from the natural water table. So some of our rarest epiphytes and plants would actually grow in those unique microhabitats, those solution holes. And what I hope to see, and many biologists and folks in the Everglades community hope to see, is that by restoring the water flows, we see ecosystem-wide benefits, benefits to our entire landscape that will then translate to economic benefits for the region, but also on a very micro scale. We want every single species that is within the greater Everglades, down to those tiny ferns and orchids and bromeliads that find their home in these microhabitats. We want all of them to benefit.
Yeah. Now we're on the Long Pine Key Nature Trail.
That's right. We're on the Long Pine Key Nature Trail.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to see a hardwood hammock, but they couldn't come here, are there other easily accessible hammocks in the Everglades that they can see?
Definitely. So a frequently visited trail here is the Royal Palm Trail nearby the Anhinga Boardwalk.
Sure.
So it's just after you enter the park. I believe it's on the left-hand side. You can park and access the wetland ecosystem, which is the Anhinga Boardwalk that many folks visit. But then there's also, I believe it's called the Royal Palm Trail or Royal Palm Hammock Trail. And there's a small area of native rockland hammock there as well.
Okay, great. All right, well, for National Parks Traveler with Melissa Abdo from National Parks Conservation Association, this is Kurt Repenchek.